The night was calm in Jerusalem, but something felt different. Jesus knew his time had come. For 3 years he had preached, healed the sick, and performed miracles. Many believed in him, but others wanted him dead. The religious leaders saw him as a threat. Now, the final hours of his life had begun. From the Last Supper to his last breath on the cross, this is the story of Jesus' sacrifice for the world. 1. The Last Supper, Matthew 26 verses 17 to 30, Luke 22 verses 7 to 38. Jesus and his 12 disciples gathered in an upper room to celebrate the Passover meal, a Jewish tradition remembering how God saved the Israelites from Egypt. But this was not an ordinary meal. Jesus was about to reveal something profound. As they ate, Jesus looked at his disciples and said, "One of you will betray me." The disciples were shocked. They looked at each other, whispering, "Who could it be?" Even Judas Iscariot, the one planning to betray him, asked, "Surely not I, Lord?" Jesus took a piece of bread, dipped it, and gave it to Judas, saying, "What you are about to do quickly." Judas immediately left, disappearing into the night. Then Jesus did something unexpected. He took bread, broke it, and gave it to the disciples. "This is my body, given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." He took a cup of wine and said, "This is my blood, poured out for the forgiveness of sins." He was showing them that his death would be the ultimate sacrifice. After singing a hymn, they left for the Mount of Olives. 2. The agony in Gethsemane, Matthew 26 verses 36 to 46, Luke 22 verses 39 to 46. Jesus and his disciples arrived at the Garden of Gethsemane. The weight of what was about to happen pressed on him. He told the disciples, "Sit here while I go and pray." Taking Peter, James, and John with him, he went further into the garden. His face was filled with sorrow. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me," he said. Jesus fell to the ground and prayed, "Father, if it is possible, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." He knew the suffering ahead, but he was willing to obey God's plan. After praying, he returned to the disciples and found them asleep. "Couldn't you keep watch for 1 hour?" he asked. 3 times he prayed, and 3 times they slept. Suddenly, torches flickered in the distance. Judas had arrived with soldiers to arrest him. 3. The betrayal and arrest, Matthew 26 verses 47 to 56, John 18 verses 1 to 11. Judas led a group of soldiers and temple guards to the garden. He had given them a sign. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Judas walked up to Jesus and kissed him. "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" Jesus asked. The soldiers stepped forward. Peter, in anger, drew his sword and cut off the ear of Malchus, the high priest's servant. Jesus stopped him. "Put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" He touched Malchus and healed him. The soldiers seized Jesus and tied him up. The disciples, afraid, ran away. 4. The trial before the high priest, Matthew 26 verses 57 to 68, John 18 verses 12 to 27. Jesus was taken to the house of the high priest, Caiaphas. The religious leaders had already decided they wanted him dead. False witnesses were brought in to accuse him, but their stories didn't match. Finally, the high priest asked, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of God?" Jesus answered, "You will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of God." The high priest tore his robe in anger. "He has spoken blasphemy. He must die." Outside, Peter was waiting in the courtyard. 3 times, people asked him, "Aren't you one of his disciples?" But each time, Peter denied knowing Jesus. Then a rooster crowed. Peter remembered Jesus' words, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." He ran away weeping. 5. The trial before Pilate and Herod, Matthew 27 verses 1 to 26, Luke 23 verses 1 to 25. Jesus was taken to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor. Pilate asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus replied, My kingdom is not of this world. Pilate found no reason to punish Jesus, so he sent him to King Herod. But Herod only mocked him and sent him back. The crowd shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate washed his hands, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood." Then he released Barabbas, a criminal, and sentenced Jesus to be crucified. 6. The beating and the crown of thorns, Matthew 27 verses 27 to 31, John 19 verses 1 to 3. The soldiers took Jesus, stripped him, and flogged him with whips. They placed a purple robe on him and pressed a crown of thorns onto his head. Mocking him, they said, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him and struck him. Then they led him away to be crucified. 7. The way to the cross, Matthew 27 verse 32, Luke 23 verses 26 to 31. Jesus, weak and bleeding, carried his cross through the streets of Jerusalem. But he stumbled. A man named Simon of Cyrene was forced to help him carry it. Women wept as he passed. "Do not weep for me," Jesus told them. "Weep for yourselves and your children." 8. The crucifixion, Matthew 27 verses 33 to 44, Luke 23 verses 32 to 43. At Golgotha, soldiers nailed Jesus' hands and feet to the cross. They lifted him up between two criminals. Jesus prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." One criminal mocked him, but the other said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus replied, "Today, you will be with me in paradise." 9. The last breath, Matthew 27 verses 45 to 50, John 19 verses 25 to 30. For 3 hours, darkness covered the land. Jesus looked at his mother, Mary, and John. "Woman, here is your son," he said to Mary. Then to John, "Here is your mother." Then he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Jesus took a deep breath and said, "It is finished." Then he cried, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." With that, he breathed his last.
10. The aftermath, Matthew 27 verses 51 to 56. At that moment, the temple curtain tore in two. The earth shook. Rocks split. Tombs opened. A Roman centurion, seeing everything, said, "Surely, this man was the Son of God." Jesus had died. But 3 days later, everything would change.